All right, the Krug Show hanging out on a Monday. Yeah, I was going to say, I almost said Thursday. I jumped all around, but it's a Monday. Wow. Dieter's in the house. The draft guide that Dieter and Jake have produced is out.
Yep.
We'll tell you about that. We'll talk a lot about the upcoming draft. We got a lot to get to. Let's go. Off and rolling Monday night. I'm watching a little A's post game. My guy Towney and Steve Sachs.
That's what I'm watching.
Are you?
Yeah. I was watching the hockey game. That's over. Look for something. Look at these jackets. Look at these shills for the whatever A's.
Seriously. Are you guys on the team?
I'm going to put I recorded UFL game or something.
Is that Gallego right there? I mean, who is that? I mean, is that
me?
These guys are literally wearing jackets. Steve Sachs with the gray hair, looking sharp.
Hanging out.
Had the issue thrown from second to first. The hated Dodger, and then Towney's got to be taking some HGH or something. He's just looking really young. He's got the great head of hair.
No question about that.
The TV going, the TV look.
Look at that.
He hasn't aged a day in 20 years, and there's
Towney.
Sachs.
Yeah.
So there you go. Wow. A's lose, by the way. The Rangers beat the A's 8-1 behind Nathan Eovaldi, who went 3 hits, no runs. Eovaldi, what a good pitcher he is.
It's hard to pitch well in Sacramento.
It is. It's a bandbox.
Bandbox. Just hit it in the air. It'll go.
Just ride it out over that SMUD sign in center field.
So bad.
Do I know my Sac Park, or am I just looking at the SMUD sign as we're watching this? All right, welcome to the Krug Show. We're brought to you by Pig and a Pickle. The best barbecue in all of Northern California is Pig and a Pickle. Check them out. They're in Emeryville. They're in Corte Madera. They're open 7 days a week from 11 a.m. till 8 p.m. or until they run out, and they do run out. So go get some brisket. Go say hi to Damon and Mary. Get some barbecue. Check their place out when they open in Petaluma later on this year. Also, the Krug Show is brought to you by Prize Picks. Is presented now by Prize Picks, which is America's #1 sports picks app. Prize Picks is super simple. You just pick more or less on player stats or even game outcomes and build your lineup. It's available in most states, including California. And if you haven't checked it out yet, use code HMA. And when you play $5, you're going to get $50 in lineups instantly. So we'll do a lineup before we get out of here. I think we're going to go with some maybe some NFL futures. I've been working on that. We'll just finish it out before we get out of here. But Dieter's in the house, and we're excited about that. A lot of people's favorite stream is the Dieter stream, and the fans are going crazy.
Let's go with that.
I just want you guys all to know, right now, if you look underneath your seat, you're going to find a copy of the Dieter and Hutch draft guide.
Yeah.
And it's free for you to take home. That is for all of the people here in studio. And
it is not free. Please do not tell people it's free.
Let's turn this into the Oprah Winfrey show.
Yeah.
You've got a brand new. All right. So tell people if they'd like to get a hold of the draft guide.
Right.
It's just out. It's only been out for a matter of days at this point. Tell them how they can go find it.
Yeah, it's pretty straightforward. You can see it right on the screen here. Sickos.football is the link to the draft guide. And it's a premium product. So if you are a member of our YouTube channel, which you can become one over at the Dieter and Hutch YouTube channel, if you're a member, we hook you up with the code. You can also just pay us directly on the website, sickos.football. And it's last year we did it as like a PDF. We took a lot of the cool stuff that we did in that book that we made last year, and we've made it interactive this year. And you can click and get, a bunch of different filters and all this. And Jake did an incredible job of coding it up. He has a fantasy corner, so any questions you might have about rookies and what you can expect from them in the fantasy football realm, Jake
That's smart.
A proprietary algorithm that he came up with. We have our badges again from last year, which is just an easy way of sort of identifying the traits that we like, traits that we don't like. We both have our top 100 because we usually do 150, but this year was only about 100, and it's not because we're lazy. This is definitely not lazy. It's because there were only about 100 players before it fell off a cliff. Of course, the guys that we put our stamp of approval on, which is a very nice cheat sheet for me for the rest of the show. So it's sickos.football. You can get it much, much cheaper if you come and join us on our YouTube channel at Dieter and Hutch. I think it's at Dieter Hutch on YouTube, and become a member there. Or you can just hit us up directly. And the coolest thing about this is, instead of just putting it out and then, saying like, hey, we have a revision to the PDF after the Niners take their guys, and we have more comprehensive stuff where we get all those notes that we had that we said didn't make the final cut of this, and now we're pouring it in. We have 3rd and 4th and 25th watches of the players that the Niners have drafted. Instead of putting out a new book, we can just put it right on the website. So it's already there for you. And this is kind of the new home for all of our fun little things that we like to do over on the Dieter and Hutch show. It's sickos.football, and we're real excited about it, and we've gotten some really cool feedback so far. So that's been really encouraging, because Jake almost died. It might sound hyperbolic, but it almost killed him. So look out for the little guy, and come join us over on sickos.football.
Well, congratulations on the draft guide. It's an incredible endeavor. One that I have never even taken one step in that direction, but I really do admire it. Todd says, Larry, you lazy. Thank you, Todd.
Sure.
Just on that note, Katie Queen says, my favorite stream with Larry all week. Thank you. Thank you. And we've got people weighing in, giving Dieter applause in this. Slice Dice Killer.
That's a good comment.
Slice and Dice Killer. Great work on that draft guide, by the way. The website has just the right amount of jank.
That is spot on. We will always maintain a level of jank. Our official motto is serious football talk by unserious people over on the Dieter and Hutch show, and henceforth our website must reflect that in all ways. It must at all times feel like it's about to break but never break, because metaphorically that's what our show's been doing for a long time.
Nice, Krug and Dieter. And then we got Howdy saying, Larry is such a goof.
He's flirting with you.
Wow, I am a goof. What can I say?
You would be in what we like to call in our house a silly Billy. There are serious Simons and silly Billies. And sometimes we need to be a serious Simon. Sometimes we could be silly Billies.
There you go. You know what?
Be silly Billies tonight.
If you do this long enough, it's like you got to have some fun. You got to have some fun. And this has been one of my favorite streams as well, Dieter, because you're totally dialed on this stuff. And it's refreshing, because then I don't have to be like, what do you think of this guy? And it's like, oh, Krug's a sicko. It's like, well, I actually have somebody who you absolutely, every name that I'm going to throw at you is a name that you know as well, or if not better than me. And I really can't appreciate that.
I have sadly thought of all of these young men. Please feel free to clip that.
All right. Let's see. We got this guy. Oh, here we go. We got one long one here. We got a War and Peace comment. Larry, you do a great Larry, you do a great job. I even share your lives to my dad, Michael Cananzaro, who's good friends with Steve Young and his families. He played football with Jimmy Young in high school back in 95, 96. Okay.
Big ups.
Sounds good. Thank you, sir or ma'am. Thank you for watching. Okay. Let's get right into the draft. And, we're going to hit the draft from a number of different angles, because I want to have kind of an organic conversation, but I want to also try to draw different things out of Dieter, because I know there's a lot of – we're going to try to draw as much out of the draft guide and out of Dieter's, intellect on this stuff as we possibly can.
We're going to get this shit for free.
We're going to try to get little angles on this by kind of making you answer the questions in certain ways. All right, Here we go. The first one we want to get into is an angle that I've always liked, which is we've looked at 1 million players. Not 1 million, but at least 1,000.
Boy, it does feel like 1 million.
Yeah, it's just a lot. But, we have looked at a lot more players because we've looked at players that stayed in school and opted to go into the draft in 27. So we have looked at a lot more players than are actually in the draft. So, and my first thing is, hey, go find who of the masses who you like. And then once you figure out who you like of that group, then you can really start analyzing and figuring out if maybe the glitches and their failings and maybe why you don't like them as much. Mm-hmm. So I wind up liking prospects a lot early and then kind of finding their warts and as we go. But there's a lot of intel, and the Niners are looking at this guy and they had a 30 visit there. Since 2015, the 49ers have drafted in the first round 1/3 of the guys that they drafted in the first round. A third of them came in for 30 visits.
Right.
2/3 of them did not. So that 30 visit thing is an indicator, but it's not like it's hardly the end all be all, right? So I guess I'll throw it to you this way. If you had to wager everything that you own, and you have young ones, so I would say don't do that. But if you had to wager every penny that you had, and all you had to do was identify any player that will be coming to the 49ers either via the draft or as an undrafted free agent, during this draft weekend, let's say.
Okay.
Who are you going to go with? Who's the one player you would bet the most money on coming to the 49ers during draft weekend? And it doesn't have to be a star. It could be a schlub. It could be anybody.
Well, this guy is not a schlub. I'm torn. There's obviously a lot of names I can go with here.
Yeah. But and what's your methodology, by the way? What are you thinking?
I'm gaming it out.
Are you thinking of rumors that you've read, or
no? I know what the Niners like. I know what. Yeah, we've been very successful with our draft guide and our coverage in the past of identifying players that the Niners identified themselves, and as we get probably into the week of, we'll get confirmation on that for a few of them to be sure. But that doesn't mean that you have to also remember it's not like the Niners are running a bespoke defensive system, even though we don't really know what that is. And certainly their offense isn't unique, even though it is a little bit different than most of the Shanahan-style outside zone offenses. So if the Niners like a guy, a lot of other teams are going to like a guy. And now we're into the game theory of, can they get this guy? So I think of two spots. I'm thinking later instead of sooner, because if it's at 27, I can see that going a dozen ways, legitimately. I have three names that pop out. I'm going to just give you one, and it's probably a name that has never been uttered on this channel or any other 49ers YouTube channel before. And it's probably because
let me guess who it is, but you have to give me the position.
I cannot give you the position without giving it away.
Oh, okay. That's okay. Then just go for it.
Riley Nowatowski, the Indiana fullback.
Yeah. Or tight end.
Or tight end. H-back, whatever you want to call it. He's very Alex Ingold-y. Yeah, we know that the Niners want to maintain the fullback position moving forward, that if Juszczyk leaves, they're not just going to eliminate it, but it might take on a little bit of a different flavor. And Nowatowski was kind of everything for that Indiana offense. It's not to take away from all the great players that they have. They're going to have the number one overall pick. They might have multiple first-rounders on that offense. Their offensive line was fantastic. They won the national championship with an undefeated season. They're pretty good. But Nowatowski was just this perfect chess piece for Curt Cignetti and Mike Shanahan's offense in Bloomington. And I have a hard time imagining that he gets drafted, though this year probably has a better chance than most years. He's not an athletic freak. He's kind of a scheme fiend's favorite player, but that only gets you so far. As an undrafted free agent, though, I think that the Niners would be very, very adamant about getting him into camp so that he can be on their practice squad for a year, and then next year they can hand over the reins to him when, in all likelihood, you have Kyle Juszczyk leaving. So the name that pops out above all else, Riley Nowatowski. The two other names that I want to throw your way, Nick Barrett, the defensive tackle out of South Carolina.
Very strong defensive tackle.
If there's, with Big Pop, too. You're looking for a backup at one technique, you don't want to spend premium capital on it. It's a very weird, true one technique class where there are some guys like a Lee Hunter who I didn't even give a draft grade to because he's not draftable in my eyes, but he'll get drafted. And
why is Lee Hunter undraftable?
Completely unathletic. Technique is all over the board. I don't see anything there that gives me anything other than like Evan Anderson vibes, and Evan Anderson was rightfully undrafted and is a fringe practice squad player. I just don't see it. at all. There's nothing to hang your hat on when you say, like, this guy's good. He worked a couple dudes at the Senior Bowl in one-on-ones when they were playing center. That is not a proper representation of the sport of football. It was great for Lee Hunter. It got him a lot of buzz, and I'm sure somebody on day 3, because I don't think he's getting drafted on day 1 or 2. I think somebody on day 3 who has a, let's say, less a less scrupulous front office is going to be like, hey, this guy got mocked in round 1 like 2 months ago. Like, why has no one taken him yet? And then they'll just take him in kind of a strange Shedeur Sanders sort of way, where it's like, we should take him, right? Like, these other guys, like, he didn't get mocked in round 1 after the Senior Bowl for no reason. Yeah, he got mocked in round 1 after the Senior Bowl for no reason. So it's just to say that there's, Dominique Orange and Dante Corleone. Like, there are a lot of guys who are being discussed as viable day 2 picks at defensive tackle that I do have a draft grade on Corleone and Orange, but they're late. I don't have one on Hunter. I think Barrett is a real diamond in the rough. I think that this is the kind of one technique that Chris Kusarek's going to love, because you can keep him on the field for 3 downs. That's huge. And the other name to keep in mind, and I do think we've talked about him a couple months ago, is Keegan Trost, the tackle out of Missouri, who was just a dominant run game blocker off of the right side, and looks like he could, I think, play all 5 positions. I wouldn't want him at left tackle, but you could play him at left tackle because he was an SEC right tackle. And so, you could do worse in a pinch, but he just has a way of displacing on the edge that is very difficult to explain through a lot of his athletic scores, but technique is almost impeccable. Yes, he's older. I think he could be really good at guard because he doesn't have terribly long arms. He's just a pure run game guy. I think he could be a really good center if they gave him a shot. I think Keegan Trost is going to be a fringe draftable player, and because I do think he does get drafted, I didn't put him as that number 1 there, but I know that the Niners are going to be all over him. This is a Chris Forrester just dream late prospect. This is the kind of guy that he craves.
He's a great run blocker, one of the best run blocking offensive linemen in the draft for sure. Yeah. So you got Keegan Trost, you got Nick Barrett, and you got Riley Nowakowski.
Yep, those are my 3, and I would go with Nowakowski as the number 1.
Yeah, those are good. Those are all good. Okay, I'm gonna go Jack Endries, the tight end who started at Cal, finished at Texas.
Yep.
His idol, or not that many young tight ends idol is not George Kittle, but his idol is George Kittle.
Of course.
And
I imagine that of this long list that I'm looking at here of 18 tight ends that we gave a grade to, 18 draftable tight ends, by the way, that like 17 of them idolize George Kittle.
Yeah. I mean, I definitely think that
I get it.
That one, because I think they're going to be looking for a tight end, and I think Endries for sure is going to be on the board in the 4th round.
Yeah,
and he's got good height, and he's pretty athletic, and he's not the strongest guy, that's for sure, but
he's a good player.
But he's a good player, yeah, and he's solid, and he's a Bay Area guy. I suppose and he showed up at the local pro day, which shows that he has an interest in being there, and probably somebody told him they had an interest in seeing him there. So yeah, that's kind of my sleuth. I'll go Jack Endries. Now, there's a bunch of guys I could go with, but one guy that I really think I looked at a ton of other guys before I ever looked at this guy, and yet I kept hearing, I like him, this guy likes him, and that guy likes him, and check this guy out, and people online saying, check this guy out, check that guy out. Mm-hmm. And finally, I spent the time and did the deep dive on Reggie Virgil, and he's a good receiver. I mean, he's a 6'3", 195-pound receiver, maybe even a little lighter than that. And he's not a burner, but he's got really good ball skills, and he's got a lot of confidence, and he's a great red zone threat. I mean, this guy is going to go up in a crowd, and he likes to high point the ball. He's got mediocre speed. I mean, mid 4.5s, nothing great, but he's been working out with Mike Evans. And, just the fact that I really think the Niners are going to put a lot of credence in Evans. He's a leader. He made a vote of confidence to come here. I could see Reggie Virgil being undrafted. He's
Fair.
the 19th wide receiver on the board.
Yeah, we have him at 28, but we do actually have a pretty positive take on him.
Yeah, tell me what you think of Reggie Virgil.
This is Jake. Jake did the evaluation on him. We split him up certainly as we get later in here. Ability to win with outside step and inside on his release. He has some sneaky craft. He lacks the high end physical traits and doesn't have the physical upside or shiftiness of other Z's in this class. Slot receiver who's crafty, could carve out a rotational role. Really good athleticism. The kind of phrase that we gave him is that who's that fourth receiver that I really like again? Like Reggie Virgil's just sort of there. Maybe a more promising Jacob Cowing, like a Jacob Cowing who actually does something, is Reggie Virgil. So, we have him at
he's not as
201.
fast as Cowing, but I mean
but he's
a better player.
Well, he can move in and out of breaks.
He's got a
and
big
stuff.
catch radius, big catch
time.
radius.
No, he's a good player, and Texas Tech just had a slew of really good players. We could have put it out a draft guide on just the Texas Tech guys, Dan. But
Seriously.
201 overall, 28 wide receiver, unbelievable wide receiver class.
What round do you have him in?
Let me see where we have him. I would say that's going to be a 6 or a 7. Reggie Virgil is a 6.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking. I was thinking,
Yeah.
if you want to use a pick in the 5th or 6th round on a receiver, they don't even have a pick in the 5th or 6th round. But I like Reggie Virgil as a match. Now I could go. There's all kinds of guys that are that I also come up. I mean, there's been talk about Cash Jones, the running back from Georgia, who's strictly a special teamer. But
Right.
I mean, if I really was betting every penny, I mean, I definitely could see Cash coming to the Niners.
That
I
makes
just
sense.
feel it just seems like it makes sense. But if I'm I won't use Cash because he's too low level. It almost feels like not really a pick. I'm gonna go. I'll stay at Georgia though. I think the 49ers love Kristen Miller, and I think the 49ers go with this kind of player a lot. And the stat that jumped out at me that I saw this week, Dieter, was the stat that said that Jordan Elliott and Kevin Givens last year combined to play 53.4% of their Niners defensive snaps. They played 579 defensive snaps. Now, West is good. He's going to get better. Collins is pretty good. He's going to get better. They just brought in Odigizua, who's obviously better than both them. He's going to play a ton. But that's a lot of snaps to lose from veteran defensive tackles right in the middle of your defense. So I kind of think defensive tackle is going to still be a need, and I wouldn't necessarily. I think this is the deepest group of players. Like when I looked at the undrafted players, the best undrafted players, in my opinion, were defensive tackles. I think it's a really good defensive tackle undrafted group. So that would make me kind of pause from taking Kristen Miller, early. But I got to believe that if you like Mikael Williams, you like Kristen Miller. He's strong as an ox. He's healthy. He's really, really strong against the run. And he's versatile as far as I think he could play a 3 technique. I think he could play a couple different spots on the 49er front. And the motor's there. The health is there. The long arms, he played nose at 310 and he's strong. I mean, he kind of, I don't know what you guys thought of him. I really want to hear what your draft guide said about him, because the more I watched him, the more I thought, man, this guy is a rock of granite. And he reminds me a little bit of Bryant Young, who obviously is a Hall of Famer, but Bryant Young was just a rock, and he would get in that stance and he was just immovable, despite the fact he was like 295, and there were plenty of guys with 320 in his era, but he was more immovable than that because he was just so rooted in the ground. And I see that with Miller, and I just feel like I could see them starting their draft with Miller. I could see them trading back, getting a few extra, getting down in the mid-30s, and then taking Kristen Miller, and then, filling in with other guys need spots as they go. But what do you guys think of Miller?
He was our number 2 defensive tackle, 35th overall for Jake, 39th overall for me. So well within the range of taking him at 27, if you just wanted to go that way. Dominant run game guy, absolute brick of granite, as you said. Our concern is that he isn't a great finisher. and that a lot of the bursts never kind of results in anything, but he has crazy bursts for a big fella up front. And as you noted, he punches above his weight, even though it looks like he's got plenty of weight when he's on the field. It was kind of shocking to see him at 310. Our comp, or at least my comp for him, was Sebastian Joseph Day. And if we've talked about the Niners being linked with Sebastian Joseph Day once, we've talked about it 10,000 flipping times. So if this guy is just Sebastian Joseph Day reincarnate, of course the Niners are going to like him. And it's just a question of, are they willing to kind of stick their necks out there a little bit and take what is pretty clearly an early second-round player with pick 27. I'll note they've done it many times before, so wouldn't be a shock in the least bit. This is absolutely a guy who's right up their wheelhouse. I mean, I'm.
Can he rush the passer at all?
He can. He's really good on stunts, and that's maybe not the way that the Niners like to go about their business, but they might be more inclined to do that going into this season, knowing that their pass rush has not been good the past 2 years. And so, you bring in a third defensive coordinator in 3 years. I'd imagine there was some sort of a mandate to bring in some stunts. They tried them last year. They didn't go great, but they didn't have the dudes to run them. This would be somebody who you can, in the same way that Robert Saleh tried to make some really interesting defensive schemes around Mykel Williams' versatility early in the season. This is somebody that you can put in as a rotational player who, yeah, we're just going to stunt him. We're going to stunt him again and again and again, especially if you play him next to Collins or West, who can really hold up at the point of attack up the middle. You can go double one in a way with Miller and play him technically at a 3, but bring him around, and that can create some more lanes because you do have such a great run stopper in Mykel next to him at 5 technique, and then you allow Bosa to come off, so you kind of get an overload on one side. It's a concept. I'm not sure it would be the fundamental reason why you take Christian Miller, but he's so well-rounded, you don't have to really worry about having him as a one-trick pony. He can rush the passer. He gets a lot of disruption. Maybe this is a Georgia thing from last year. He gets a lot of disruption, but he doesn't really make the play once he's in the backfield there. But disruption is the name of the game, especially if you're on the interior. I'm more of a Caden McDonald guy. I don't think he's going to be around at 27, but I think Caden McDonald is the better player. I'm much higher on him.
Run stuffer.
Unbelievable. Much higher on him than Peter Woods. I'm much higher on him than Caleb Banks. The guy that Jake is really into in this class is DeMonte Capehart out of Clemson, who is a frighteningly athletic big man. My comp for him was extra large Milton Williams, which I think any team would take. He's looking like he's going to be maybe even a day 3 pick. I can't justify it. I think DeMonte Capehart is perhaps the most likely player to well exceed their draft position. But
what about this guy?
McClellan out of Mizzou?
It's kind of unique, isn't he? He's a gigantic guy with long arms, like 34-inch arms. He seems scheme versatile.
We didn't have a draft grade on him.
Wow. Did you have a draft guide on this cat? This guy right here? Where is it? Where is he? Here it is. Uar Bernard?
No.
That guy. I mean, Dieter, 308 pounds. He ran 4.63.
Yeah.
That
then you watch the tape.
I know. Is there tape? Has he ever put a helmet on?
I don't know. I'm not gonna. When we are taking guys who we're just doing this and trying to put our hats on, we're not giving out participatory grades. Like, just that's an undrafted free agent. There's no tape to work off of. I don't care how athletic you are. There's a lot of guys in the NBA who are crazy athletic that, well, could they play defensive end? No. Could they go play tight end? No. I'm going to go off of what we've seen. And if someone wants to take a lottery ticket, go to town. But I can't advocate it on the basis of we have to go off of what's already been on the board. So
it's football. It's not a track meet. I'd be interested. Would I want to have that guy? Sure, if I can sign him off the street for nothing. But I would never invest a pick in him. Yeah,
this might be the year where you could do it because the board falls off really fast. Jake and I were joking around, like, where does the draft kind of end? And I think that my answer to that is as soon as Harold Perkins, the linebacker from LSU, is taken, it's like all bets are off. There's no At that point, you can just take anybody. You can take people that no one's ever heard of before, and like you won't be wrong, because once Perkins is off the board, like that's the last like draftable player that has some semblance to positional usage and upside as it pertains to these picks. But
to me, it's like 5 rounds. I mean, there's five.
Yeah.
There's 5 good rounds of players.
Yep.
There's normally more, and the 6th and 7th round are going to be like the undrafted market. It's just going to be hit and miss. There's going to be lots and lots and lots of 6th and 7th round picks that don't make the roster on whatever team they're on. We're going to get into the draft on a lot of different fronts, but one question on kind of a league-wide front.
Yeah.
I don't know if you guys did any analysis, because you're just, God knows there's enough to do just looking at the prospects and ranking them and grading them and all that. But who's the best at this? And I get this question sometimes, and I guess it's easy to just, some people just go, oh, Howie Roseman, he's the best. And other people go, no, John Schneider, Super Bowl champion. The Seahawks are the champs, and they made great moves, and Nick Emanwari and John Schneider's the best. And then other people are like, no, the Ravens, Eric DeCosta, he's the best. And there's probably 2 or 3 other guys that Les Snead is obviously very well thought of. Brett Veach, come on. I mean, Brett Veach has done a really good job in Kansas City. And there's a number of guys around the sport that I have great respect for. Who do you, if I say to you, who's the best? Like, you can have anybody at all kind of running your show on draft day. Who's the best right now? Who's doing it the best? And it's kind of a dynamic thing, right? It's not a static question. This kind of changes. Maybe it's not even fair. Maybe it's more year to year.
I'll go with Joe Hortitz in L.A., the Chargers GM,
with Harbaugh there.
Yeah, because the correct answer over the last 10 or so years is Eric DeCosta with the Ravens. They understand what it is they want to do. They have a clear identity as a football team on both sides of the ball, and therefore they're able to draft players that, outside of the wide receiver position, typically really fit the bill for what it is. They always have way too many good tight ends when other teams are struggling to find one. They always have way too many good defensive tackles and linemen when other teams are, desperately paying anything they can to get them. Their offensive line is always stacked. Lamar is one of the all-time great moves on draft day in NFL history. Running back, I mean, maybe not with draft, but like a lot of people really like the backups to Derrick Henry, and you just give them a shot. Like, I do think that Baltimore stands out, but I think Joe's doing just an unbelievable job with the Chargers. Again, I think it all stems from having an identity with the head coach, and this is another reason why it's a little bit more frustrating that the Niners have not been as successful, though I would never categorize them as straight up bad at this, because they do have hits. And I do think that people would be shocked at how many misses these supposed exalted great drafters have. Even 50% is just unbelievable. And the Niners have had a couple of 50% drafts over the last few years. But again, it really stems from, what you're doing on offense. You have an identity that, Jim Harbaugh might not be a defensive guy, but there's an identity that he pushes on defense, and they just do an outstanding job of finding those guys. And Joe does a great job beyond that and this is a Harbaugh thing. This is, I think, a good GM thing. When in doubt, take the beef. Like, if you're offered chicken or veal or fish, just order the beef. If it's all going to cost the same, take the beef. Tie goes to the man in the trench. And you'll never feel bad when it's all said and done if you were like, we really like that corner here, but there's a good offensive lineman that we have with the exact same grade. Who should we take? You'll never regret, even if you bust, you'll never regret taking the offensive or the defensive lineman, because when the season starts, you're going to be like, man, I don't know if we have enough offensive and defensive linemen, because every team in the NFL says that. Meanwhile, there's probably 4 or 5 guys on the street down the road from you who could step in and be your 6th corner. So always, always, always pick the beef when given the option on the menu. And I think Joe Hortitz does that as good as anybody, with Baltimore obviously being the breeding ground for his success.
Yeah, I mean, to me, it's funny. My mentor in pro football when I first got into it was the late great Bill Urbanek, who I worked with in the Canadian Football League, and he was the Sacramento Gold Miners defensive coordinator. I was his defensive quality control staff. I was basically the entire staff of the defensive quality control. So I was like his guy, and he basically was like slave labor.
Right.
And I worked. I mean, I worked like 12 hours, and he would call me lazy and say, "Hey, you're lazy," and he'd be like, you need to work harder. I'm going to pick you up. And I said, okay, that's fine. You pick me up. I'll work whatever hours you. I go, I'm committed. I'm all in. I'll work whatever hours you want me to work. He's like, I'll pick you up at 1:45. And I'm like, okay. I'm walking back to my car. I'm walking back to the house. I'm like, 1:45 to what? And he goes, 4:45. And I'm like, oh my God. So 4:45. He's like, you better be out of the curb, boy. So, he would pick me up and drive me to work every day. We would pick me up at 4:45, and he would drop me off at 1:15.
Yeah.
And that,
you wonder why it's late, the late great.
And exactly. And you wonder why these guys don't know their families. And you wonder why, some of these guys, who are smart guys, and it's like, what happened to their kids? It's like, because they were never there. So it's a tough gig. And I chose to get out of it voluntarily. People are like, I've had some people go, "Oh, dude, who's an ex-scout? It's the greatest job in the world. If you're a scout, you're."
No, it isn't.
Like,
that's my favorite. That's my favorite.
You don't
thing.
understand that. You don't understand it. It's like, it's very isolating,
Yeah.
and it's like, if you're like a normal person like me, where I came from a family with with kids and brothers and sisters, it's like, I wanted to have a normal family, and it's like, but I also wanted to be a football scout, and then I realized you can't be both.
Nope.
I don't want to say that. I shouldn't say that, because there's probably some guys who make it all work. But you know what? It's hard.
You couldn't be both. I couldn't be both. There's a lot of people who shouldn't be both.
I couldn't be the dad I wanted to be by doing that, because you have to be married to your work.
Yep.
And I love my work, but I'm not married to my work. I'm married to my wife, and I'm married to my kids.
Right.
Right. I mean,
yeah, I'm with you.
My job won't love me back.
No one knows better than you, Lair.
Yeah, exactly. My job's told me to get lost a couple times.
Yeah. I've never been divorced from my wife, but I have been fired.
Right. Those babies that you have never tell you to get lost.
Well, that's not true, but that's a different conversation.
They will. But basically, there's a price to be paid. And he used to say to me all the time, where was I going with this?
What was it? What was his motto? He was.
His motto was, you gotta have guys. You gotta have real players, and it's a rough game played by some rough guys, but you have to find the real players. And what you have to search for is, you have to search for the essence of a player. And he said to me, guys are dying to get there, and guys are dying to leave, and you got to figure out. You got to draft the right people, because you could draft the right guy, but if he's got a problem here or there, he doesn't become the right player. So you got to get the right people who are also the right players. And when you can align the great player with the great person, and production with also great athletic testing, turn in the fucking card, man. Totally. That's the guy. Those are the subsections of guys that you want. And the best GMs are so good at finding these guys. And I'm going to go with this guy right here, Brad Holmes in Detroit. Oh, pick. And what his motto was he's like, you guys, he worked for Al Davis. And Al Davis used to say, you guys like to hit singles. I want to hit home runs.
Yeah.
And so Al Davis,
Giants.
Al Davis went he wanted the rarest body type. So he drafted Sean Jones, and he drafted James Jett, and he drafted super fast, super huge, super this, super that.
The greatness of Jamarcus Russell.
You don't understand the greatness of Jamarcus, and neither did Lane Kiffin. Anyway, but
rare body type.
But you know what? Al Davis would have gone for Branch from Georgia in this draft, or Brennan Thompson. Yep. He would have wanted the fastest guy, and he would have wanted this Max Ionacher. He would be all over Max Ionacher. Al Davis would draft him 10 times over.
Yep.
And so anyway, my point is, Al Davis wanted to hit home runs. And what I love about Brad Holmes is, look at this draft record. Now, granted, these are some high picks, but Penei Sewell and the Niners in that draft took Trey Lance ahead of him.
Well,
And Penei Sewell's the best right tackle in the game.
I firmly disagree with that. I think Penei Sewell might be the most overrated player in the game, but he is still unquestionably good.
He's a dominant offensive tackle, and
I just don't think people actually watch him. I think he's been riding on reputation.
Really?
Well, I think you're all about to find out when he moves to left tackle this year. You're all about to find out.
We'll see, because talk is they're going to get
unquestionably good pick. I'm not arguing that he's a bum. I'm just saying that Penei Sewell.
I think they're going to go for Caden Proctor and put Proctor at left tackle.
We'll see. We'll see.
But I mean, the rest of these picks, Hutchinson obviously was like a Bosa pick. He picked himself.
Easy.
But Jahmyr Gibbs with the 12th pick, that took conviction.
Bold.
And Amon-Ra in the 4th round in 21, that's a great pick.
Yeah.
There's a lot of really good players here. So I mean, you're talking about players that aren't good, that are very good. Now there might be a miss or two here, and we'll see over time. It's hardly the perfect list, and it's people picking people. But I'm just saying, Brad Holmes is the most quiet. If you have this discussion with hardcore football fans, who's the best personnel guy in the game, you're going to hear so many names before you ever hear Brad Holmes. He keeps a low profile. The head coach is the star.
Right.
Brad's cool with that. Brad just keeps getting guys. I think Detroit has got something really special in Holmes. He came from L.A.
Mm-hmm.
He worked with Vermeil, Charlie Army, all those guys with the Rams.
Yep.
The greatest show on turf personnel department brought that to Detroit. He's been fantastic.
He's great. Here's an interesting thing that I'm looking at. Brad Holmes took over before the 21 season, if I remember correctly. There's only 2 players that he's drafted in the last 5 years that aren't in the league anymore. That's
a good trade. That's a good trade too.
Wild. Like, sure, Chase Lucas, 7th round pick in 2022. Like, should he be? Maybe not. But the only 2 guys who aren't in the league that he drafted, pick 219, Antoine Green out of North Carolina, and Ahmad Hassan, defensive end out of Boise State last year in the 6th round. And
I think he's still in there. Isn't he on their practice squad? He's not.
He doesn't. He's not highlighted here on Pro Football Reference, so we'll keep an eye on it. Regardless,
points the same.
And he is absolutely a singles and doubles hitter. That's actually what you want to be. You want to be a doubles hitter. You're driving guys home. You're putting yourself in scoring position, but you're not swinging you're not swinging out of your shoes. You're just lacing it into the gap, getting into second, keeping the chain moving, making things happen. That's where it is.
Totally. You have to be keenly aware that there's a massive failure rate of these prospects, and you have to be able to envision how they're going to fail and who's a high risk and who's a low risk and that kind of thing. You got to manage risk, and you got to figure it out. Like the 49ers, yes, I mean, they got a really intriguing decision on their hands, and we'll get into it here. But, and why don't we start right here with, I wanted to get Dieter on to talk a little bit about who his favorite choices are for the Niners. And why don't we start at offensive tackle? Sure. Because Matt Maiocco went on with Field Yates, or maybe Field Yates went on with Matt Maiocco. And
Who's
he basically said,
anymore?
Yeah, he basically said, they were talking Caleb Lomu from Utah, and they were talking Max Iheanacho from ASU.
Yeah.
And a lot of people think that the Niners are coming down to that. I personally, if you said, what do I, give me your 30-second handicapping on what the Niners are going to do at 27, I would say it's obviously tied to Trent. If Trent if the Trent show is going to end, they're going tackle at 27. And and when I say end, I mean they're going to move him and they're not going to come to an agreement. If he's going to stay, I think they actually will choose either a left guard or a defensive end. And if I had to guess, I would say Chase Basantis and Cassius Howell. That would be my guess.
It will definitely not be. Well, it shouldn't be Cassius Howell. I'm very low on Cassius Howell. I do agree with Chase Basantis. I like a Trey Zune as well from the Texas A&M line.
It's a good line. It was one of the better lines in college ball.
Really good. Like Overcrown, their tackle, has a chance to be a pretty decent NFL player as well. He's
Crownover.
Apologies.
Yeah.
Just a monster of a man. I got to type. But what was the question again, Lair?
Well, I mean, who is your, the question is, I guess I was just kind of handicapping before we got into, I was going to ask you in this segment, who are your favorite choices for the Niners? And I thought we could start at offensive tackle.
Yeah.
And it seems like they're framing it as Lomu versus Iheanacho in at 27.
Yeah, I don't.
And I it's funny. There are people pushing hard for Iannicher, and I understand it because he really is a spectacular talent. And part of me says, hey, look, you got Chris Furster, who's a very good coach, and this guy is a fantastic ball of clay. Just, draft a Iannicher, take your lumps for a year. But you did go after Mike Evans. You did bring in Dre Greenlaw. You kind of announced to the world that you're going for it in 26. And if you bring in Iannicher, the scouting report in the McGinn article did make a very good point that he's a little bit of a dice roll, a little bit of a crapshoot, a little bit of a high risk, high roll, high reward guy for sure. And also, he might not be able to play guard. Guard, everything happens faster inside.
Right.
He's never played a down of guard. He's played very little football. He fits the description of the kind of guy that might be a disaster at guard. And then you've invested your biggest draft asset in a player that can't help you in 26 in a year where you told Mike Evans, come here to win a Super Bowl. So I think the Iannicher, you'd have to have conviction from Chris that this was the right guy. And
I doubt you get that.
I don't think you're going to get that either. And I kind of like some later round guys anyway. So I'm okay with that.
Yeah.
But why don't we start there? Who is your favorite? I want to know your favorite choice at each position of need for the Niners. And we'll start with offensive tackle. If you,
and this is at 27 or is this anywhere?
No, it could be anywhere where you think. I'm looking, the word I want you to think of as we're putting these names together is value. Where do you see the greatest value at offensive tackle in this draft?
I think the greatest value is going to be in Caden Proctor, the Alabama tackle, because I do think that he can play guard, and I think that he has the ability to be the left and right tackle. We've talked about him ad nauseum. I think if he's there at 27, he's one of the very few players on the offensive line. I think he might be the singular player on the offensive line at 27 where you can't overlook him. I think you can say no to Iannicher for all the reasons you laid out. I don't think you can take a guard at 27 because of the fifth-year option. I think Proctor is a two birds, one stone player, and the only reason you're getting him is because of weight issues, and those aren't fake, but they also don't bother me. Maybe this is a personal projection. They just don't bother me as much as maybe they do other people, and that's going to make their time talking with him in the pre-draft process very, very vital. I think the best value there at 27 is Proctor because I think he's the best tackle in this class. If we're going down the line, value, Emil Wagner, someone you and I have talked about a bunch on day 3, has really serious value as a legitimate left tackle prospect, as somebody who can do it. If we're talking day 2, Travis Burke out of Memphis is just dominant when he gets going. You shouldn't be that big and be able to move that fast. There's a lot to work with technique and stuff, but he's really, really, he's an exciting prospect to me. Travis Burke out of Memphis.
Yep.
It gets really dicey in this class. Like, I'm not Cage Casey should play tackle. I don't think he's a very good tackle. I'm not in on Austin Barber. I know you are. Markel Bell, like, it could work. I want it to work. I don't think it works. I have him as my 86 prospect because I'm hedging a little bit, but his feet might not move well enough, especially if you compare him to like a Crownover who
he's very high cut. He's very high cut.
But like, I'm not a J.C. Davis guy. I'm not an Alex Harkey guy. I'm not, Jude Bowery has a little something to him, but that's a multi-year project. Isaiah World probably should work on the squat rack a little bit more. I think Zune's a guard. I mean, we could just go down the line. For as many draftable tackles, specifically tackles, as there are early in this class, I think Proctor is the number one, and I think that he would be the best value to the Niners at 27. And if you want to push it down the line, you're really getting into the rolling of the dice game with Wagner feeling like the safest high floor, maybe low ceiling option who could give you left tackle play down the line if you needed it.
I love the coaching of the Notre Dame offensive linemen.
You should.
They're really well coached. And for that reason, I like Wagner. 6'6", 306, but he's in good shape.
Yeah.
And he was the captain of the team. He had 0 penalties,
Huge.
which is good.
It's under
2.4% pressure rate. I mean, there's times there reps that he just got abused, like so bad that I'm like, oh God, I almost want to not see that. But this guy's got 34.5-inch arms. He's smart. He's athletic. I think he wants to get better. This is a kid I definitely would bring in because I want to find out how he's wired. But 2-year starter on a really, really good line, smart football, and I like what they did. I mean, I thought they're a smart football team on all 3 phases of the game. So I like Emil Wagner. I like J.C. Davis, but I see there were some reps at the Senior Bowl where he just had no ability to anchor. By the way, the best, if I can encourage anybody to invest 2 hours in something, and I don't tell anybody to invest 2 hours in much
other than these streams.
Go watch Mike Tice, the former offensive line coach, with his son Nate Tice. They did a 2-hour offensive line deep dive. Mike Tice is a truth teller, and he's very authentic, and he had a lot of good things to say about Proctor. He had a lot of good things to say, just period, across the board.
Yeah, he liked a lot of the guys. He likes this class.
Yeah, he does. He said he's got 15 guys that he looked at, and he likes 14 of them to be NFL players, and 1 that he didn't like. But how about guard? So for me, I like Emil Wagner. That's the guy that I like as far as and then Barber. The thing about Barber is the penalties don't bother me as much. What I love about Barber is that I just think he's a great fit for the 49ers for what they need and what they want to invest. I don't think the Niners want to use the 1st or 2nd round pick on an offensive tackle. I think if they're going to use it, it's going to on an offensive lineman. It's going to probably be Besantis. It could be Proctor though. It could, because Proctor is the kind of guy that could play guard for a year. And so I don't think it could be Ionacher unless they're just convinced he can play guard.
Yeah.
But I think Barber, the fact that Joe Staley's been working with him and that there's a nastiness to Barber, and the fact that he challenged himself at the All-Star game by playing right tackle and showing that he could be both a right tackle and a left tackle, and he handled the best rushers in the SEC. And
he handled them. He had more penalties than anybody in.
He had 29 penalties, I think, or 19 penalties.
Like we usually kind of get up in arms with like 7, 9. He's in the high 20s. Like at a certain point.
In fairness to him, a couple of those. I mean, I was at a game where he had 2 holding penalties, and it was literally it DJ Lagway? Is that the quarterback?
The quarterback, yeah.
Who just like ran the wrong way. And, it's like,
no,
and then Barber saw it and just tackled, the defensive end. And he got, I mean, I think he also has some beyond the whistle kind of stuff where he just, he's trying to like set a tone. But I would rather dial a guy back than try to get him revved up.
I'll give you
and
that.
I love Barber because he's ready to roll. And I like him because he's a swing tackle.
Mm-hmm.
And I also think that he's got potential to actually play on the left side. And I think most of I would say most of these guys looked like either guards or right tackles. The thing about Proctor that scares me the most is just the fact that he was obese. I mean, he was like over 415, they say. Now that's big. So, and my only concern is, he seems a little kind of chill and like in the interviews, he loves his nickname Crispy, and he's just, I don't know. I'd have to know from like the strength and conditioning coach that he has turned a corner and found, Jesus as far as his football Jesus, and is really committed to the fitness, because what I worry about is the Trent Williams or the Trent who's the guy that Niners drafted?
Trent Brown?
Trent Brown. where
Who's still in the league, by the way.
He's still in the league. Like, I think in some ways I view Proctor as a very safe pick because he is a gigantic human being.
Yeah.
And I kind of feel like even though Markel Bell is considered to be high risk, I kind of think he's a pretty safe pick because he, to me, is a better version of Dawan Jones. So I kind of,
Yes.
I think some of the biggest guys are actually pretty safe picks as far as their career in the league, but I just don't know if it's going to be at tackle for those guys. So
yeah,
I don't know. We'll see.
Yeah.
It's a weird league, but so you like Proctor. I like Wagner. But my if I have to go with one guy, I'll go with Barber.
Okay.
How about offensive guard? Who is your guy at guard? Who's the guy that you like the most?
Well, my guy unquestionably is Besantis. I'm a big fan of Besantis. I think he's the second coming of Justin Pugh. I think he's really good. I don't think he's
functional strength for days.
Oh yeah, he's an absolute tank. I think Jake called him a heat-seeking, jet-fueled Zamboni, which is, I mean, he really pops off the tape. Great frame, really good athleticism, outstanding scanner, which is something that we've, really taken an eye to. Like there's one thing to be looking for work. There's another thing to understand what's coming and to be a step ahead of it so that you can keep your eyes up and be scanning the field to see if there's something that you can do, like to be able to adapt to the situation as opposed to being shocked by it or just running through and standing there and, oh, why isn't anyone here? So there's a lot there. He does have some technique issues, and he kind of punches a bit too early. But I think Besantis is just the absolute real deal. Again, I don't think he's going to be there for the Niners.
At 27, you think he's gone before 27?
No, I don't think that there's value in taking him at 27 because of the 5th year option. I don't.
Oh,
think
so you're saying passing him?
I don't think you can
look for him in round 2.
It'd be a round 2 thing, and I don't think he's going to be there. So if we're talking guard and we're talking value, I think a Pat Coogan in the 6th or the 7th round would provide pretty serious value. The center from Indiana, I think he has certainly 3-positional flexibility, can play either guard, probably better than he can play center. They pulled him a lot at center at Indiana, which was really fun to watch. He's not aesthetically pleasing, but he just gets the job done every time. Really good recovery. Again, nothing that you would stand out athletically or even on the film, just doesn't really lose, and he'll find that anchor at the very last second, seemingly every time. He had really good tape against the Miami front line, which is not an easy thing to do. So I'd go with Coogan, but if I had to get somebody maybe a little saucier, I think Logan Jones, the guard out of Iowa, is just really high floor. I'm not
fast, like one of the fastest centers you're ever going to see. Like as good a speed at center as maybe he's ever played center.
Yeah, not a powerful guy, but the footwork is just impeccable, and it's
unbelievable athlete.
It's really hard to overlook that because he does provide more punch than like a Jake Brendel. There's a lot of Jake Brendel centers in this draft class. Clearly, the Niners should not be trying to find the next Jake Brendel. They should be trying to upgrade from Jake Brendel, even though I am a Jake Brendel defender. I think Logan Jones at 58 wouldn't be absurd in the least bit, and I think would be really good value if you're going there. So I'll go Coogan very late in a pick that they don't have, but if I had to go with the picks that they do have, Logan Jones at 58 feels like the win.
There's some good ones here. I think this is a good position. I think there's some really good players here.
It's a good class for this.
Yeah, I mean, the more I watch these guys, the more I thought, there's some guys who I thought were a little stiff, but there's some badass dudes. There's some really badass dudes. Okay, so 2 of my favorites, and I've been spending a lot of time in the lab watching these offensive linemen. Now, once again, my whole thing is value, right? Like, I love the kid from Penn State. I think he's really good. Venga Iwane. I mean, he is, I think, going to be durable, powerful. I think he's going to be really good. Not a big fan of Pregnon, even though I would say Pregnon probably looks the best. If I could take one player in this whole draft that looks the best in the uni, it's this guy. Emmanuel Pregnon, 75 at Oregon. He just looks like a destroyer, ripped and jacked.
He's our top-rated guard.
if they were doing a movie, he would be central casting. He would play the offensive lineman. He's just
100%.
absolutely an Adonis. Besantis is a mean, nasty mauler. I think he's the safest pick in some ways. He's done it in the SEC. He's also played left guard. The Niners need a left guard. He's plug and play. He's as seamless as it gets. So I love Ione and I love Besantis. I really like Jennings Dunker, but I think it's going to be, I don't like him at all as a tackle. He doesn't have the right movement. He just can't do it. He can't pass protect. But I really like him as a guard, and I think he could be a very, very good guard. But it's a little bit
his
of
handwork, to be fair.
I mean, this guy needs to be coached.
Hard.
And he's coming out of a system that I think he'll adapt to the Niners system well, but he needs tutelage badly because he's all over the place. But I do like the frame. Keelan Rutledge is one of my favorite players in the whole draft. I just love him. I just think he's a bad man on the football field, and he's got bad intentions, and he's not the best athlete, but he's one of the best football players. I love him. And I love Jalen Farmer from Kentucky. I know he's had some off-field problems, but, man, he's huge, and he's fast, and he gets off the ball, and I really like him. But we're talking about value, and value means the best player for where they're picked.
Right.
And I've been talking up Fabechi Wiwu all year, and I like Micah Morris as well. But the more I watch of the Auburn kid, Jeremiah Wright, the more I'm just like, oh, my God, that guy is just an awesome player. He has got to be the widest player in the whole freaking draft. He's one of the widest players. He is 6'5", 348 pounds, but he is so broad. I mean, he wore 77. He's just really, really wide. I mean, like really wide. Selma, Alabama prospect, and I love Jeremiah Wright. He was the team captain. He's a destroyer in the run game. He plays every game. He's made 24 consecutive starts at Auburn, earned a grade of 90% or higher in 5 games, led the team with 33 knockdown blocks. This is a strong, strong player. He's played right guard. He didn't really play in the Niners system. He's much more of a gap duo kind of a guy. But I really think there's more athleticism there. The footwork is better than you think. He's super smart. He was an SEC academic honor roll throughout. He was a former defensive tackle, so he's got some movement ability. He's a smart player who used to play baseball. Jeremiah Wright is so broad, so big, and such a natural at that weight. Like, he's the most natural 350-pound guy. This guy didn't lift weights to get to this size. This is what he was born. This is who he is. But he's just so damn wide, and I just think that Auburn's got a real, real good track record with drive blocking offensive linemen. So I think there's the ability to really move people in the run game. I love the way the Auburn backs ran up his backside just continuously. It was like they just hit his backside and went. He sealed his side, and it was awesome. So there's work to be done there, but I like value-wise, I think this guy's going in the 5th round or 6th round. And
we didn't give him a draft grade. We don't think he's draftable.
You don't think he's draftable?
No,
I think this guy's
there's a lot
buddy.
to like, but I much prefer Dylan Wade, who played left guard for Auburn. I think he has way more movement ability.
He definitely has more movement ability. But this guy will erase the sun. That guy's a little bit more of a fun, regular size guy. This is the wide body of wide bodies.
Yeah. Just hated his footwork. Hated his footwork so bad. Hated his hands. Just someone will do it. Wouldn't be me.
Yeah. I mean, they list him here as pick number 175, which is where? That's 5th round?
Yeah, 5th, 6th round. Yeah. No, and listen, again, that's the optimistic viewpoint of it, but I think that there were we're judicious with it. I think we had 21 draftable guards in this class. I didn't like him more than I liked Connor Tolson, the center from Missouri, or Bo Stevens, the guard out of Iowa. I didn't like him more than Matt Golbin out of Michigan State, or Amaje Reed Adams, or Jaden Roberts, or Logan Taylor, or Fabechi Onwenu, or I prefer
Where did you
Wade
have
on the
Where
wing.
did you have Weewoo?
We have Wee at 15th best, 142.
What about the other Auburn offensive lineman, Miller? Did you have him rated at all? He was a pretty monster guy as well.
Miller or Lou?
Miller. Well, there's Connor Liu, the center.
Connor Liu we have as a second round pick.
Yeah. What about Xavion Miller?
No.
Thought to go late.
No, we don't have a draft grade on him, and we don't include the UDFA's in this for.
What about Weewoo? What round did you have Weewoo in?
6th or 7th.
Yeah, I mean that. And now his pass blocking is better than his.
I
run
take that
blocking.
back. 5th. I apologize. 5th.
But to me, the pass blocking in a passing league, you got to be able to pass block. We can teach you different things about run blocking, but I'll take the pass blocker who needs run blocking development. I don't want the run blocker who needs pass rush.
We actually preferred the run blocking to the pass blocking in the tape breakdown. It wasn't like that at the Shrine game, but
Weewoo.
Of Weewoo, when we watched the Oklahoma film, we thought that the run blocking was much better than the pass blocking. But
he played for Oklahoma.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
I thought you meant the Oklahoma game. I got you.
No. Yeah, like when we would watch, we went through probably 4 or 5 Oklahoma games with an eye on the offensive line to be sure, and obviously crossover with a lot of other SEC stuff. It was just kind of lumpy in the pass game. It was mostly I'm big, or at least wide, and that sort of was a facsimile of anchor, but the footwork didn't match up with an actual NFL caliber anchor when it came to that. And when he went up against some actual NFL caliber defensive tackles, he really did get pushed back a lot. But he has, I think Jake had his better than Matt traits, good IQ. The hand placement's really, really good. But he really does like to open up those hips in pass pro, either one way or another. He's kind of a turnstile in that regard. And so we liked him better in the run game.
Let's do another position. Let's go running back. Who is the ideal running back for the 49ers?
It's Jadarian Price out of Notre Dame because it's probably the best one that they can get. I really.
They're saying he may go at the end of the round 1 to Seattle.
It wouldn't shock me, legitimately. One cut and go demon, just crazy speed. I think that there's if he was in a different draft class, he wouldn't be talked about in this regard, right? Like he wouldn't be a guy who's talked about as possibly a first round pick or even a top 50 pick or maybe even a top 100 pick. But because he's so clearly the second best running back in this class, it's like you better get him now because after you get through him, it's just day 3 flyers. I mean, I had 3 running backs in my top 100. And the third one is Jamari Taylor, who I like, and I kind of felt like Katron Allen's too much of
too slow.
Nick Singleton got beat out by Katron Allen.
Yeah, Nick Singleton's not really. He's like a better looking version of Garendo. I mean, he's just
kinda.
He doesn't have great.
Doesn't even have that kind of pop. I really don't care for Mike Washington's tape at all. I liked him on Claiborne, but he's way too fumble prone, way too boomer bust. It might work, it might not. The Indiana guys are good, but they're not special. Jam Miller, as I told you, I think last week, like I wanted it so bad. I kept looking. I spent way too much time looking for it. Can't find it. He's just Jerome Ford, which isn't a bad player, but like, come on, we're talking about Jerome Ford. I'm someone who thinks very much in the mindset of the comps, like who is he? And even if you have to make like love children out of it. Like Damon Claiborne is like a Nyheim Hines or a Jaden Blue. Like what are we talking about? Is a Ford like my third best running back is my comp to him is Chase Edmonds. That's a top 100 player. That's Jamari Taylor. Like he's a good player. He's a really good player. Probably too small. It's a bad running back class. So the answer is Jadarian Price, and I just don't see a way in which the Niners can get him because there's no way that they can take him at 27, which is probably the latest that they could get him.
It's everybody's got their own favorites. I've heard people bag on Jonah Coleman. I've heard people say they like him. I've heard people bag on Emmett Johnson. I've heard people say they love him. Yeah. I've heard people bag on Kalon Black. I've heard other people say they love him. I've heard the same thing about Seth McGowan from Kentucky. I mean, there's just a lot of interesting names out there. I'll give you a couple guys that to me shined because you're right. It's kind of a bad group. I do believe that Mike Washington might be a guy that the Niners want because he does have a lot of speed. And he is big, and he can get to the edges.
I would sure hope that they
learn 10 career fumbles. I can't believe Shanahan would draft a back that had 10 career fumbles. Not after watching. I mean, last year I was standing on the practice field when Garendo fumbled 3 times in one day, and the very next day Brian Robinson showed up.
Yeah.
So Shanahan is like, he'll stomach fumbles the way Bruce Bochy and Dave Rigetti stomached walks out of the pen. It's like he doesn't want it at all. So if you fumble, you're gone. So I think Mike Washington Jr., I think there's a lot to love, but he was great at Arkansas this year. But I think the 10 fumbles will scare them away.
Agreed.
Emmett Johnson, I don't know, is durable enough, even though I think he's pretty badass.
I don't dig him.
202 pounds. Katron Allen's slow. Jonah Coleman's a solid running back, but he doesn't have that extra gear. I like McGowan's extra gear, but I just kind of wonder about his durability. Singleton has no feel. Claiborne, they say, is kind of an oddball guy who the people don't like. Le'Veon Moss runs upright, takes hits, gets hurt a lot. He's hurt now.
He's an interesting enough player though. He could be an RB2. The problem is there's like one RB1 and maybe the second one is Price. I just don't see any RB1s in this class besides the Notre Dame guys at all.
Yeah, I mean, you have to dig. I mean, I like Kalon Black a lot. I think he's got a lot of talent, but you know what? There's just no special traits there. There's not that extra gear.
He's an inside zone runner. He's somebody who comes in. He's a good third down, short yardage back. Like there's a lot of positive. Like he
doesn't catch it great either. I don't.
When I knock a lot of these guys, it's not to say that they don't have a role in the NFL. It's just to say that you can't prioritize them because their role is so minimal, even on a team that needs a running back. Like these are they're Jags. It's a draft full of Jags.
I think that there's going to be some sleepers here because there's some guys on the back end of this list that have real juice. So let's talk a little bit about that.
Okay.
Now, the guys we already named, Jamari Taylor, there's great contact balance. Jam Miller's a great blocker. But like a couple guys that are way down the list that I really like. Rajul Faison from South Carolina. I think he's a really underrated player. There was a lot of good film on him. Robert Henry's from Texas San Antonio.
We like him.
5'9" back. Jamal Haynes from G-Tech, another guy. He measured at 5'9", 190, but at his local pro day, supposedly he was 207 pounds, and he's a converted wide receiver. I think Jamal Haynes has that kind of shot out of a cannon. He had the best 10-yard split or 20-yard shuttle, I should say, of any back. That was for this draft class. So, I mean, Jamal Haynes has got a lot of get up and go. I really like him. And then Keyshawn Owens is not a fast 40 time guy, but there's a lot to like as far as if you are looking for a similar back to a McCaffrey. He is a guy that can catch it out of the backfield and does it really naturally. He looks really natural doing it. But yeah, the one guy that I really liked, and I got to watch more of him, but man, I liked him a lot when I saw him, is the North Dakota State back, Barika Pinu. Did you guys rank him at all?
Undraftable.
Okay. 5'10", 215 pounds, pretty explosive. You don't have a draft grade on him.
Nope. Didn't like the vision. Didn't like the contact balance. No.
Niners looked at TJ Harden. They looked at Cash Jones. Yeah, it's slim pickings. I would say my favorite guy is, I like for value, I really like Jamal Haynes. I like
Listen, there's nothing but value because it's a lottery ticket, and you're not spending any real draft capital on any of these guys. And there are going to be
Well,
teams
you would
that,
if you took Washington. You'd take him in the second round. If the
I
Matt
wouldn't touch him.
Barrows, they're interested in Washington talk is real, that's a second
mistake.
round draft choice.
No, he's a 4th round graded player for us.
Okay.
So if they want to do that again, knock themselves out. But the tape is awful. The tape is awful.
Wide receiver. Let's go wide receiver. Who's your ideal wide receiver, or who's the receiver that you love
more than anybody? The guy that we're collectively highest on, and it's kind of shocking because he is a very divisive player. We're both extremely high on Chris Brazzell out of Tennessee. We can't get enough of him. He's rated as our second best wide receiver in this class, above Tyson, above Lemon, above Concepcion, above Bernard, who I'm a big fan of, and one of the 10 players that we both gave a seal of approval to, Jeremy Bernard. We're big fans of his game. I comped him to Mo Sanu, which is a high compliment, but we think Chris Brazzell, outside of Tennessee's janky-ass system, has a chance to be a really special X receiver in a league where that's not the norm at X receiver anymore. A lot of X receivers are out there just to be sacrificial, to clear out a safety so that the other guys in the slot and at Z can do their work. Brazzell's the kind of X receiver that could, actually do something here. And when you think about where the Niners are at with their wide receiver core, yes, they have Mike Evans. That's technically a 3-year deal, but in theory, really a 1-year deal. They have a couple of good options at Z. They're going to figure it out at the flanker spot, but that's not a position that they use all that often, especially if Kyle Shanahan has his druthers. It's really just a third down position. So you have guys who can be off the line and play inside on tight splits. You need a true backup X. I don't think Jordan Watkins is an X. I don't think that he has the physical heft to play that position as it needs to be played. He might have the long line speed, but I don't think he can beat Jam off the line. There's really no backup X. And we saw what happened with Pearsall when they had to play him at X. He got pinballed around. Even though he's a great route runner, it doesn't matter if you're a great route runner if you're not coming out of the chute where you were expected to go. If you're in a different lane at the beginning of the race than you were, or 5 meters into the race than you were when you came out, you're not going to win the Kentucky Derby that way. Brazzell's the kind of guy who has unbelievable release, unbelievable deceleration, really great catch radius. And again, I think that his draft status is being knocked because he's coming from Tennessee's janky-ass system. But all of the knocks that people have on Brazzell when I talk to people around the league about him is, he looked kind of lazy. And what's the deal with him never leaving the right side? And then it's like, oh, so you don't know how Tennessee plays football. I'm not agreeing with how they play football. I think it's ridiculous. But this is Tennessee's offense. They don't substitute. They run as many plays as possible, and they are directed to, they're never asked to change sides of the field. They are told as outside receivers where they have 2 guys on the line of scrimmage outside the numbers, so basically 2 X's at any time. What they're told is if the ball's not coming your way, don't run hard. Save your energy. And then people will knock you for being a Tennessee wide receiver. I think Chris Brazzell is going to be an absolute stud. I would take him at 27 all day, every day. I think people would get pissed off about it. I think they'd end up being wrong. I think Chris Brazzell's the absolute truth here. So if we're going value, Brazzell somehow at 58 would be the coup of the century. Beyond getting Mykal Williams at 11, I'd take him at 27. And if we're going deep on the board, I like Bernard at 58. I like, I don't think Ted Hurst gets to 127, but boy, you'd be lucky if he did. There's something to Deion Burks at 127. There's something to Eric Rivers in that 4th round range. Caden Weegan, by the way, I do think needs to be talked about because they do need at least a punt returner. I think Caden Weegan with pick 139 would be real good value there for somebody who can play the flank a little bit. And I think is a really good route runner, kind of a Jakeem Grant type, where he's a punt returner first, but he actually gives you some value as maybe a clear out flank on the interior on a 3rd down. So that was a lot of names, but my answer is Brazzell all the day long. Brazzell.
There's a couple guys that stand out to me. I mean, I'm a big Ted Hurst fan. I like Ted Hurst from Georgia State.
Very good X receiver.
I just think that he looks like the best to me. And it's like I can tell myself about, well, this guy and that guy, but To me, Hurst looks better than these guys. And I really love Chris Bell's ability to run after the catch, but can't invest a first round pick in him because because of the ACL. And I don't love the route running in the intermediate either. As far as like, I think he's like a great run after the catch guy and end around guy, but as far as footwork in the intermediate, like I just watched JSN just become like the best receiver in football this year with all this amazing footwork.
Mm-hmm.
And
this guy doesn't.
Bell doesn't have any of that. He doesn't have any of that. Now he does. I could see why the Niners would like him because there's some Jennings there. He'll run that in cut with confidence.
Great blocker.
And he's a blocker, and he's also got a little bit of the rack that the Niners don't have. There's a lot of this guy for a guy who the stopwatch speed is pretty ordinary. He looks fast. Like pre-injury, this guy runs away from people at 225 pounds, and once he gets 2 or 3 steps, I don't know that I've seen anybody bring him down once he gets like 3 or 4 steps into the secondary. It's like
really good
suddenly he's just this incredibly difficult guy to tackle. So I like him. The other guy that I really like, I mean, there are a lot of people that panned. I got buddies who looked at Deion Burks who panned him. I've got people that scouting reports I've read saying that he's kind of nothing. But I like him. I like him a lot.
He's good.
I think he's a route runner. I think he's a speedy route runner with very powerful movement. Like if you look at his when he chops his feet to get into the, at the line of scrimmage to beat somebody or to get into or out of a break, it's very crisp. Mm-hmm. It's very powerful. He's got strong body. This guy I think he had 26 reps at 225. That's like 3 more reps than CJ West. Yeah. So this guy's strong. So I really like DJ. The more I watch the Oklahoma program, the more I like the Oklahoma players. Deion Burks, I really like. And I'll tell you the other guy that I absolutely is a difference maker, just based on speed. Now, he's only 160 pounds, but Brennan Thompson from Mississippi State is a blur. He is very fast. He's so fast. Now, he's 1 hit away from being done, but he is so fast. And a buddy of mine, with these speedster guys, I was going through a buddy of mine and asking him, all right, of these little guys that run super fast, which of these guys is like cowing? Which of these guys are Danny Gray, where every hit and they just can't play, as opposed to Tyreek Hill, where they're, he's a small guy, but he's absolutely dominant. And the guy that I talked to said that Brennan Thompson is legitimately a tough kid, that he isn't going to break tackles, but that he is not some super soft kid, that he's smart, that he's dedicated, that he's more physical than I think. I'm always skeptical, and I have kind of a cutoff point of 170 pounds. If you weigh sub 170, I can't draft you. And he's like 165 pounds. He is explosive.
He's fast. The concern is, he's super duper fast. People go, oh, well, Tyreek Hill. Well, Tyreek Hill weighed like 215 pounds. I mean, maybe he didn't, but Tyreek Hill was yacked.
He was a totally jacked little guy. He was like a little muscle.
As wide as he was, tall as he was, deep. And I can't buy in to just these scat guys that play on the line of scrimmage, especially ones that are going to have to go into the slot, because your job, whether you like it or not, in the NFL at that position is you got to go over the middle. You got to go over the middle. And what happens? What happens if you're, he can slide through that? Until the ball gets there early, because the pass pro ain't holding up, and they're going to throw it real fast over the middle because you're the quick out, and now you're dead. Like, there's just no kind way to put it. It's just he does not look like he could hold up against NFL caliber linebackers. And that's maybe the biggest difference. Like, safeties in the NFL are linebacker size at the college level, and linebackers at the NFL are the size of the defensive ends in college. And that's true in the SEC even. And we got a lot of defensive ends in this draft class that look like, they're 245, 250. That's a minimum cutoff to play linebacker in the NFL, I still believe. So I just don't know how you're going to be giving up almost 100 pounds to some of these guys and expect to survive. So Hope he can return punts. Hope he can figure it out. I mean, our comp to him is Xavier Worthy, which might sound like high praise until you look at the fact that Xavier Worthy hasn't done jack shit at the NFL level because he's too tiny and too injury prone.
Yeah, and he doesn't run the full tree, and he only runs the go route and the post route and sideline routes, and it's like
he's a gadget guy, but there's fun there. But and if we're talking, 112 overall for a gadget guy, and you got all your other needs, go to town, have fun. Yeah. But you can't go into a draft saying, hey, we need a wide receiver and come up with a Brennan Thompson. He's the cherry on top to an already great draft class where it's like, hey, we also had fun with this guy too. Let's see what happens. If we got to cut him in camp, we cut him in camp. No big deal. But if that's your one guy, you're not getting 16, 14, 10 games out of this dude. I hope I'm wrong. I hope
I think you're probably right. I think you're probably right.
I'd much rather have an Antonio Williams who at least I think has enough to hang out in the pinball machine a little bit.
Right. And he's quick and he's a real football player. He's got real route running ability and he knows how to kind of get in and out of breaks and avoid hits. I like Burks the most out of the fast guys because I think he can actually take a hit.
Yeah.
You got to actually be able to take a hit. All right, let's jump into our Prize Picks lineup for today. Prize Picks is America's #1 sports picks app, and the reason I like it, it's simple. You're just picking more or less on player stats or game outcomes, building your lineup, and you're in. No complicated stuff, just what you think is going to happen in the game. No, use code HMA, play $5, get 50 in lineups instantly. Link is in the description. All right, let's quickly go right to it here, and we will move the screen. We'll move us to the corner.
Where we belong.
And we will change the banner.
So click those buttons, Larry.
Okay, here we go. Hold on. There we go. Okay. We're going from that one we're going to switch this up. Here we go. Where is it? There it is. Okay. Hey, Prize Picks. Look at that. And then I'll just share the screen and we'll put I've already done the lineup. So what I'm going to do is here we go. So we're looking at our picks. We got Puka Nacua. We're going season totals. Puka Nacua, I'm saying less than 8 receiving touchdowns. Myles Garrett, less than 14 sacks. And I'm thinking Jackson Dart less than 3,249 and a half passing yards. How do you feel about those three? Those seem pretty reasonable
to me. Yeah.
Okay. And we will wager $10 on it. It says low balance.
Hey now.
But there you go.
That's what happens.
Deposits are only available in the Prize Picks app. But there you go. Thank you to Prize Picks. Normally it would appear on the screen, but it says that we have a low.
You ran out of money, Larry.
Ran out of money. I need a new deposit. But anyway, thank you to Prize Picks and get you play $5, get $50 instantly. You just use the code HMA. And thank you to Prize Picks for being a proud sponsor of the Krug Show. And we will move that off of. Hey, we're back. All right. Also, I just wanted to, before we finish up here, I wanted to finish up with a couple of other sponsors. Because thank you to our sponsors for supporting the show. Thank you to Habas Law. Habas Law is outstanding. They fight to make it right. Visit habaslaw.com on the web. When everything's on the line, choose the team that understands when everything's on the line, and that's Habas Law. They fight to make it right. habaslaw.com on the web. And 1-800-INJURED for Habas Law. And thanks to Habas Law for being a proud sponsor of the Krug Show. Also, thank you, Alomar Marina. AlomarMarina.net. Float while you dine on the Sacramento River. They're at 5999 Garden Highway, open Wednesday through Sunday. Check them out on the web, AlomarMarina.net. Thank you, Alomar Marina. And also thank you to Novato Chevrolet. Go talk to my guy, David Corral. He's the man to go see. It's an outstanding family-owned dealership. The owner, Gus, is a personal friend. Go in there, tell him that Krug sent you, and they will give you a screaming deal. The great David Corral is the top sales guy. Novato Chevrolet, a fantastic dealership, rated as the #1 dealership in the region. Thank you to Novato Chevrolet. And also thank you to Sharp Corners, Sports Cards, and Collectibles. The great Anthony Catania is there in Pacific Grove, California, and he's offering free shipping on everything that you order if you're a Krug Show fan. So you go in there, you tell them you're a Krug Show fan, and you get free shipping courtesy of Sharp Corners, sports cards, and collectibles. Great follow on Instagram, Sharp Corners 831 on the gram. All right, we will finish this up. Dieter, tight end. Who is your favorite tight end in this class? It's an interesting group.
It's interesting. Jake and I actually disagreed most on tight ends this year. His guy is Dalen Bentley out of Utah. My guy's Oscar Delp out of Georgia. I just think that Delp is highest floor, really good ceiling on it. Fast is right, unquestionably. I think he's a really good blocker when it comes to angles. I think you put him in an offense that actually asks their tight end to do something more than 5-yard digs, like you're gold. You're gold. I think that he's going to be a much, much better pro than he was in college. And the athleticism with the ball in his hands is just really easy to see. The blocking's a plus. I think, everyone's looking for that two-way tight end. I'm not calling him a George Kittle type, but I would much rather have him than an Eli Stowers or, Michael Trigg, even a Justin Jolly. Like there's some good tight ends in this class, but I think Delp has the chance to be the most well-rounded, solid pro. The comp I had for him is like a Cade Otton, where he's not going to wow you in anything. He's just going to produce. And Cade Otton's carved out a hell of a good career for himself down in Tampa Bay, multiple quarterbacks. So I'm an Oscar Delp man.
That's a good one. Delp ran 4.48 at the local pro day, and there's reason to believe that he could be kind of a reincarnation of George Kittle from the standpoint of Kittle was underutilized as a receiver at Iowa, but was a hell of a receiver and ran 4.5 in the 40. It was much more experienced as an inline blocker. Delp's never had 300 more, over 300 yards receiving in a season. He's totally underutilized in this super loaded Georgia program. But then they looked up and you're like, wait a second. 4.48. This guy's running across the middle of the field like he owns it. He's kind of tough. He's a legit 6'5". I think that's a good one. That's a good one. I like him a lot.
Obviously, it was my pick.
Yeah. The guy that I like, and I did a deep dive on tight ends about a week ago, and to me, you always got to look at tight ends and find out what is their origin. Okay, because there's two origins of tight ends. There's tackles who lose weight and are too weak but they're great athletes and they wind up at tight end. And then there's receivers who get bigger and stronger and then they wind up at tight end. And I personally would rather have the receiver who gets bigger than the offensive lineman who is now playing tight end. And I know there's examples of both that have been successful and examples of both that have not been successful. But the guy that I really like is a former receiver, and that's the Houston tight end, Tanner Koziel, and he's a Chicago kid. He's from Bloomingdale, Illinois. He grew up a Bears fan, and I saw an interview this kid did, and he's just he's just a great kid. I mean, he's got a golden retriever named Jax. The guy's, if he could eat one food the rest of his life, he said it would be brisket. I mean, who doesn't like a guy like that?
Especially on this show.
His brother was a kicker at Indiana, so it's kind of a family of athletes. His cousin was an All-American running back at the University of Chicago, which is a great academic school.
Yep.
He is a huge Bears fan. We won't hold that against him, but I love this kid. He's tall. He's a good receiver. He's smart. You have to be smart to make it in Kyle's system. And then the other thing is, it's like you can find, I don't know how you feel about this, but the more I watch the NFL and the more I watch the Niners and this tight end position, the more I think, you know what? Why ever go sign a blocking tight end? You can find a million guys who can block.
Well, this year for sure.
There's a ton of guys out, but there's a ton. Like I like the Ohio State kid the most as a blocker.
Mark.
Yeah, he's like really powerful blocker, inline blocker. He reminds me of like Tip Ryman from a couple years ago.
Don't. Tip Ryman was my guy a couple of years ago. I love
very
Tip
good
Ryman.
Blocker.
Marlon Klein out of Michigan is a very good blocker as well, who has some upside there.
I like him too.
Josh
This kid was all
Cuevas
first
out of
team
Alabama is a good blocker.
Very strong, very good weightlifter. But this guy, the one thing about Koziel, he is smart, academic, Big 12 all academic team. He's tall. He's a red zone threat. You're not going to have Kittle. You don't have Debo. You don't have JJ. You don't have Ayuk. I think they're going to be hurting for weapons. And, last year Tonjes stayed healthy, but Tonjes is really linear and small. This guy's 6'7", 250. He's a more legitimate threat as a receiver. He's a more legitimate threat as a blocker. I think 4th round is probably where he'd go. I don't know what round you guys had him in, but
we have a 6th round because he can't block worth a lick.
Yeah, I like Tanner Koziel and Koziel or Koziel.
Koziel. Yeah, Koziel.
Really like him. I think I like him as a receiver who can help you in the red zone.
Yeah, a guy that I loved last year was Rondé Gadsden, who can't block worth a lick, but had absolutely sick hands. He is not that kind of player, but you would have to view him in the same realm that the Chargers did, which is he's an extension of the run game. So a lot of offensive linemen are viewed as sort of extensions. Or I'm sorry, a lot of tight ends are viewed as extensions of the offensive line. This guy is an extension of the wide receiver core that gives you a little something, a little punch against a safety. So kind of a very specific mismatch player, probably not something for, as salient your point was, like when you already have a Tonjes who can't block, probably not going to go get another guy who can't block. I think that they would more lean towards a Kakmarek or a Klein or even an Endries over any of, certainly a Stowers or even a Kozoil. But yeah, or Jake McCree out of USC, who's just a catch only wide receiver. Maybe a Justin Jolly. This is a good tight end class, but there's a lot of one trick ponies in it, and I'm very curious to see which ones come out on top because you can make an argument to me that like a Lance Mason, the Wisconsin guy, has serious untapped potential as well, like that, or even a Sam Roush, who I think is probably overhyped in the Bay, but is good. Like there's good tight ends here. Max Clare out of Ohio State, the pass catcher out of Ohio State, much better player. I think he's a 3rd round caliber player. Like this is a good tight end class, and kind of whatever you're looking for, you can get. So I'm with you. Like definitely don't be paying blocking tight ends unless you think they have serious receiving upside. The Niners are like 0 for 7 on that. So go with Delp, who can give you a little bit of everything, and that's something you need right now.
It's amazing when you look at the evolution of the tight end in the last 20 years. To the combine in 2005, there was 41 wide receivers, 35 running backs, and 14 tight ends. Yeah. The combine this year, there were 46 wide receivers, 21 running backs, and 27 tight ends, almost double the number of tight ends that showed up at that were invited to the combine this year compared to 21 years ago.
Well, it tells you about this draft a little bit too, where it's, the spots where it does have some depth are the non-premium positions, places like tight end, places like guard, places like safety, even corner to a degree. It's a good linebacker class. It's in all the, there's 2 good fullbacks in this class in all the spaces that no one's really, looking at. Quarterback, god awful. Running back, god awful. Wide receiver, there's a lot of players there, but the fall off is pretty significant. Like the Denzel Boston love makes no sense to me, but that's a different conversation.
I don't get him. I don't get that either. I'm praying that the Niners don't take him.
I don't get it. Yeah.
We'll speed through the defense because we're already going too far.
Oh boy, I don't know if I got time for the defense tonight.
Okay, we'll just finish here. We'll finish on this last one then. A buddy of mine wrote a story today that I really don't love, and it's Ollie Connolly, who I worked with on the 49ers, and out of London. And he wrote an article today about Reuben Bain and how Reuben Bain got into an accident years ago, and the passenger ultimately it was a bad accident. And the passenger ultimately died. Mm-hmm. And bringing this up now, I just thought I don't know. It seemed like almost in poor taste unless there was a new development. It doesn't appear to be a new development.
No, it was not widely known. Full stop. So
it was not widely known, and it's actually may significantly, and who knows, it may not, but it may significantly impact Reuben Bain's draft prospects to the point where the afternoon path to the draft was talking about he could fall all the way to 17.
Yeah.
Now, I guess the question is, where did you have Bain? What do you guys think of Bain? And if he did fall down the board, should the 49ers try to make a move and go up to try to get a falling Reuben Bain? It's the kind of thing that Eric DeCosta seems like would do.
Yeah, we think Bain's unbelievable. He's my number 2 player. He's Jake's number 5 player. There's not a lot of question marks. I think that much like Mendoza, when you are consistently viewed and talked about as better, people spend a lot of time pre-draft trying to figure out what you're not good at. I'm not saying in any way that's what Ollie was doing. He was just reporting something that was not widely known. I was not aware of all the conversations I had with Bain. I can tell you NFL teams weren't fully aware of that. It might have been some speculation, but nothing had been concrete in that regard because a lot of those records had been sealed. I think Bain is an absolutely awesome player. My comp for him was Elvis Duverville, which is maybe a bit of a deep cut for some, but
yeah,
unbelievable player. And the lack of length is a problem, but not when you play football the way that he does. And I think that he actually uses his lack of length somewhat to his advantage in terms of bull rush and things like that. So I have Bain as my second best player in this draft. It goes Caleb Downs 1, Reuben Bain 2. If he's anywhere within reaching distance for the 49ers. Yes. Yeah.
And who is your, do you have a favorite defensive end as far as value goes? Is there somebody that you really like that maybe isn't necessarily the top of the board? Is there somebody that you really liked
at defensive end? Yeah, I mean, I think Keldrick Falk is I have him at 10 on my board. I clearly have a type. I'm not going to apologize for it. I think Keldrick Falk is great. If we're talking a little bit deeper, I'm higher on Romello Height, pun intended, than most. I think everyone's in on Gabe Jacas right now. The guy that I like, I think maybe further away than consensus, is Kieron Crawford out of Auburn. I think he's a Harold Landry 2.0, and I think that kind of like with Chris Brazzell at Tennessee, the system that he's coming from is undercutting evaluations because you're just not going to put in the time and effort into rationalizing why bad coaches are putting him in spots that he shouldn't be. And it's not like he was playing poorly in those spots. It's like, why do you have your best pass rusher dropping into coverage and playing Tampa 2? Because you're a bad coordinator. What happens when you actually let this kid do what he was put on this earth to do, which is just blitz you off the edge, absolutely dominate you with long arms and a great first step. A little lighter than I'd prefer, but when we're talking about a true 9 and a sub package, we're talking about somebody who's going to back up at 9 for the 49ers and not be like a 5 technique. I think Kieron Crawford is a diamond in the rough in this class, so I'm very high on Crawford. That's a great
call. That is a great call. I'm totally with you on this one. This is the kid. He transferred from Arkansas State. He only played 1 year of high school football. I mean, I don't know if people knew that, but he played only his final year of high school football. He was a basketball player. And then he goes to Arkansas State, and he just started to kind of learn the game a little bit. And you can see that he is improving at a rate that's really incredible. And then you look at the athlete, and you're like, whoa, this is a great athlete. And he's 6'4", 255, but he's got the kind of frame that could easily put on 15 pounds. This guy, I would say a year from now, after a year in an NFL weight room, this guy's going to be 6'4", 265, easy. Yep. And what he's got is really special. Now, he's a little bit more, the step sequencing is going to have to be hammered out. He's done a lot of 2-point stance stuff. You're going to have to get him in a 3-point stance. You're going to have to coach him up. It's going to take some time. But this kid's traits are off the freaking chart.
What stands out?
That's a great one.
The
book says the Beast said this is a kid who shows up early and works all day. That he is not just and to me, Dieter, if there's what's the most important subsection that you could draft from, it's the combination, it's the intersection of awesome athlete, super hard worker. And if you can find that awesome athlete, super hard worker, man, I would keep drafting that, combination of traits over and over again. I think that's a winning combo.
He strikes me as, you and I will be at rookie minicamp second weekend of May, and we'll be watching. And he strikes me as the guy who, when everyone lines up and he's drafted, pick 138, pick 133, and everyone's just going to be in shorts and running through drills, and we're all going to turn our heads and say, who the fuck is that?
Right.
What do you mean you got him at 138? Oh, now that he's only asked to do one thing, which is put one hand in the ground, explode out of his stance, get around the edge, crazy bend, crazy long arms. You could teach him how to hand fight. Well, he doesn't have to learn much hand fighting when you got that kind of burst off the line of scrimmage. And everyone's going to watch in those drills when he's going around the bull ring, when he's coming around the corner, and you're going to be like, what? How did they get that guy? And it doesn't matter what camp he's in, Niners camp or 31 other teams. Everyone, if he gets drafted on day 3 or even late day 2, everyone at that rookie mini camp, and that only speaks for so much, is going to be looking and just going, how? What? No. Okay.
Quick, 3 quick thoughts and we'll bolt. My undrafted free agents that I think where I'm looking at, the top 500 list, and I'm looking at who's not going to be drafted from 250, let's say, on down. These guys are all UDFAs, and I don't know if you have them on your draft guide as all UDFAs, but I love all of these guys. Landon Robinson, Navy, Gary Smith, UCLA, Skylar Gill Howard, Texas Tech, Devin Eastern, Minnesota.
Yeah, Devin Eastern's a good one.
The Thompson twins, Ontario Thompson, Washington, James Thompson, Illinois, formerly of Wisconsin, and then Carlos Allen, who's a sawed-off interior player for Houston, like 5'11", 290, and he's just a really interesting player. You got to go watch him if you haven't seen him yet, Dieter.
Yeah.
But that to me is where there's real value. If you want to build up your defensive interior, and the Niners lost a couple guys, you know what? You don't necessarily have to go for the Kristen Millers early, because I just read you like Devin Eastern and James Thompson are absolutely going to play in this league, and they're not, according to at least the list I'm looking at, are not slated to be drafted.
Okay. The best long snapper in this class is Garrison Grimes out of BYU.
Okay.
That's my guy.
That's your guy?
Garrison Grimes. Little pop there. He can actually get down there and make a tackle for you. The ball's on the money every time.
Okay. I like that. Biggest sleeper. Do you have a sleeper that you think? Now, it's funny. People say sleepers, and then they'll say somebody who's going to go on day 2. It's like, come on. Sleeper has to be somebody who's either not going to be drafted or is going to be a day 3 guy, or just somebody that you kind of stumbled on. Do you have anybody like that?
I like Trost as the sleeper. I think
Keegan Trost.
Borderline draftable, I think, to most. We put a 5th-round grade on him. He's 83 in my top 100. I don't think that Chandler Rivers, the Duke nickelback.
You don't like him?
Oh, I adore him. He's
awesome.
Unbelievable. But I think he's a day 2 pick, so it's not really a sleeper. But I think that Chandler Rivers shows up and everyone immediately is like, oh, how'd that guy go on day 2? Like, he's just going to look like a first round. At the end of the year, Chandler Rivers will be a name that everybody knows because he's just so damn good. But if I had to go with somebody there, I'll go with Trost. I think that Trost just fits in an outside zone system. Doesn't have to really explain how, just gets it done. I think that's a good day 3 sleeper. Not as deep, not as maybe a light sleep in that case, but I feel Trost is going to outperform the best.
That is a good one. To me, where I found some sleepers where it's at linebacker. Remember this name. There's a guy in this draft, an inside linebacker who plays for West Georgia. Okay. His name's Micah Thurman, and he's 6 feet, 230. 22 reps of 225, 4.52 on the 40. Great instincts, and flew around and make plays. And I'm telling you, this is an NFL body. There's no doubt in my mind. Micah Thurman. And the other guy that really stood out, and he's too slow. I think he's too slow for the NFL. But, man, I love this player, and you should go watch this guy. Brian McCoy. He started at Akron, okay? He's a Chicago kid. He's in your neck of the woods. He's a Chicago kid. He's from he went to Joliet West.
Yep.
Okay. 6 feet, 225, Started at Akron. 95 tackles at Akron in 2023. It's a lot of tackles. 120 tackles for Akron, the Zips, in 24. Right. Named first team All-MAC in 23 and 24. This year played at Oak State, transferred to Oak State. Roughly
bad choice, by the way.
5'11", 230, 6 feet, 2 1/4. He had 71 tackles in his only year at Oak State. Okay. He's slow, right? Like, yeah. I mean, I think he ran 4.8. He might have run in the 4.8s.
Yeah, he's only instinct.
He's all instincts, but 311 tackles in 4 years in college. He benches over 500 pounds. If you look at the efficiency, tackling numbers, he was one of the most efficient tacklers in the country. He hardly ever missed a tackle. His dad was his hero. He's this guy who's high character, loves animals. 22 reps at 225. High school wrestler who was a state finalist 4 years in high school as a wrestler. Brian McCoy. I mean, this guy. Yeah. A scout one time told me when I didn't like a slow linebacker, he's like, if their instincts mean much more than their speed. He said if they don't have good instincts, that just their speed takes them further away from the play. You always want the guy with the instincts, and then you just want the guy with the instincts with enough speed. So you got to watch the film to figure out if the guy with the instincts has enough speed. Now the reality is, if you run 4.8 in the NFL, they find you, they isolate you, and they get you off the field. But I would take this kid just on the production and the wrestling background and the special team potential, and see how he plays. I'd be interested to see how he plays. I would sign this guy as a UDFA, bring him to camp, and see if his intellect as a football player and his tackling ability, does it work? Because it's either going to work or not going to work. And there are plenty of guys that weren't that fast that made it, and there's plenty of guys that were fast as hell that didn't. So they're my two sleepers. One, Micah Thurman, who's got the tools, but he's out of West Georgia, and then Brian McCoy. He doesn't have the tools, but man, I'm
going to give you one more.
Okay.
Yeah, we talked about Jaden Daniels a couple streams ago. I'll leave that where it was. Wouldn't shock me if Miller Moss shows up as an undrafted free agent quarterback, Louisville, previously USC, and just sticks.
He was highly rated, right?
He was very highly rated. He made a lot of money at Louisville last year. It wouldn't shock me if he just sticks. Absolutely zero traits to speak of except for accuracy and play recognition, and damned if those aren't the two most important traits for a quarterback. My comp for him was like Case Keenum, that one good year that Case Keenum had with the Vikings. There's just none of it's sustainable. None of it's going to, get a franchise quarterback contract, but it wouldn't shock me if Miller Moss stuck around for a while.
Miller Moss, that's a good one. 6'2", 205 pounds, played at Louisville this year.
Yeah. He was not very good at Louisville this year, but...
Did you have a draftable grade on Jacob Clark?
The running back?
No, this is the Missouri State quarterback who's
we didn't.
Basically 40 years old.
We had very few draftable grades in general at quarterback this year. I can give you a number. We had
5.
It was like 8. I mean, I think we got a little.
How about
loose.
this? Who would ever have thought this? We may see a Cal Bear in Fernando Mendoza go 1, and a Stanford Cardinal go 2 in Bailey.
In Bailey,
the ex Cal Bear and the ex Stanford Cardinal go 1-2 potentially in the draft.
I'll tell you, I liked Bailey. I remember finding Bailey late in the process last year and being like, Jake, I think this guy's like day 3, day 2 talent, round 3 talent. I don't actually know if he got that much better. I think he just played with better players this year, which is something to, it's a point of positivity for him. But I'm not sold on Bailey as like number 2 overall. I would take him as like a mid-first round guy, frankly.
Interesting.
I don't think.
How
you
about
can keep him
Taylon
on
Green? Did you have a draftable grade on Green? I mean, he's
Uh,
6'6", 230, and he runs 4.36.
Yeah, the problem is he's not a quarterback.
Right. He might be, but they're comparing him to Kaepernick.
That's ridiculous. Taylon Green, his best case comp is Brad Smith, the former Missouri quarterback who turned into a halfway decent wide receiver and a really good special teamer.
The Jets, yeah.
That'd be the best case, and the worst case is he's a really shitty Anthony Richardson who isn't a good quarterback. So I would lay off the Taylon Green unless you have no interest in ever playing him a quarterback outside of like fun gadget stuff.
Gronowski, did you have Gronowski draftable?
No.
Just doesn't throw a good enough ball.
No, we legitimately despise the tape.
The tape was bad. He was great. He actually had better tape for the Jackrabbits and
he did
South Dakota State than he did for Iowa. He didn't take to the Iowa offense at all. It didn't work.
No.
They didn't score points. They didn't get first downs. He just didn't look good. But he's big and strong and smart, and I don't know. We'll see.
Yeah, that's great. Someone will take a chance on it, just in the same way that someone kept taking a chance on C.J. Beathard, but it ain't it. It ain't it.
All right, that's going to do it for us. Everybody go buy Dieter's draft guide.
Sickos.football. You just become a member of the channel. It's so much cheaper that way.
Exactly. We do have a couple supers. We'll hit them here. Here we go. Quickly. Dieter, you got me so excited about Caden Proctor, but he's not getting past the Lions at 17. Schrager and Daniel Jeremiah reported on a live stream. There is a lot of talk that Dan Campbell is in love with Caden Proctor.
Makes sense to me.
Do you think that's accurate?
I don't know what Dan Campbell's thought process is, but he definitely checks a lot of boxes if I know anything about Dan Campbell.
They lost Taylor Decker. They have to have somebody. They're going to use that first pick on a tackle. It's probably a Proctor. Brad Jones says, and I am also getting the feeling they are taking a punter at their final fourth pick. Oh, my God. If they take that punter, Stonehouse, if they take a punter at all.
There's no draftable punters this year. They're not. They're bringing them in early so that they can have inside track for UDFA. And they should sign a punter as a UDFA because they don't currently have a top-tier punter.
Yeah. This is how you set up yourself for some UDFAs. You bring them in ahead of time and you kind of work it out. Michael says, I think Kyle is enticed by Chris Brazel's height and speed combination. 4.37 40, 1.52 10-yard split will absolutely run away in the open field. There's a lot of people that really like Brazel.
Nobody as much as me. Nobody as much as me.
Definitely a fast riser.
Also, just think about this. Remember when they drafted they drafted Ricky Pearsall? The idea was, okay, we're going to give Pearsall a year. He's going to sit behind Debo, and then he's going to take over as the Z, and we're going to have Ayuk at X, Pearsall at Z, and we'll figure it out at flank because, again, it's a bit role. Well, you don't have Ayuk anymore. Not technically, but in practice. You don't have Ayuk anymore, and Pearsall needs to move to Z. So you have Mike Evans. That gives you a year to bring Brazel along with that red shirt. It just wouldn't shock me at all if they had the exact same plan for Brazel as they had for Pearsall. Give him the red shirt because everybody under Kyle's getting a red shirt at wide receiver, whether they like it or not, whether they're a high pick or not. Let him learn from Mike Evans. Let him learn the finer points of being an X receiver. And then, you figure out what you have in Pearsall. And if it works out, now you have those two guys that you can push forward with, and you kind of get the match that you wanted with Ayuk as a true X and Pearsall as a true Z. That was your plan. Now you can maybe get it in a really convoluted roundabout way, not unlike drafting Trey Lance and ending up with Brock Purdy.
I think the Niners, I love Ted Hurst, and I'd love to see the Niners go for a high-end receiver. I think Kyle Shanahan, based on his comments this offseason, is absolutely tired of raw rookie receivers. And if they draft a rookie, it's going to be a rookie that's ready to roll. I don't know who it's going to be, but I think it'll be somebody that's ready to contribute because he seems like he's got almost disdain for young receivers at this juncture.
He does.
The
final question there was why not take Basantis in the first round? And the answer, again, is the fifth-year option. You have to pick up the fifth-year option before the fourth season, after the third season, and a fifth-year option is across the offensive line. So you have to pay a guard the fifth-year option that's rated against the contracts of tackles. And it's the reason that Linderbaum, the Ravens center, didn't have his fifth-year option picked up, even though he's a very good tackle. Because he got $20 million in the open market, he was going going to cost them $18 million on a 5th-year option. They couldn't do it, not before his 4th season. So it's just not a reasonable thing to do. You're giving yourself 3 years of runway, and then you have to effectively be an all-pro caliber player to justify having a 5th-year option picked up. And it is, for all the reasons that teams want to draft players in the first round so that you get that extra year of them at quarterback, at wide receiver, even at running back in some cases, defensive end to be sure. It's the reason that you don't want to take a guard or, just a space-filling defensive tackle or even really a linebacker in the first round, because that 5th-year option is so dangerous for especially interior defensive linemen and interior offensive linemen.
Interesting. So you don't think Basantis is going at 27, even though they might overlook it. I don't think that any guard in this class is good enough to overlook that. We got this one from Rolling with Sammy. Hannah Mogana, start, stop, left, right, up, down. Am I missing something? Am I missing something? Giannis says, if 49ers draft Denzel Boston, I challenge Dieter to go to the first round presser and go on the rant he was on about him on your show there. Well, sure. I don't know if he was on a rant, but what is my big takeaway with Denzel Boston is I spent an hour watching film of him, highlights, and then I actually watched 2 games, whole halves of games. I never saw him get even an arm's length of separation.
Correct.
And I'm not trusting, it's no different than anything else. It's like guys, the old saying, it's like, when we'd play a team in basketball, it's like you had a bunch of guys that love to block shots. Just pump fake them because they're going to jump every time, because jumpers like to jump and shooters like to shoot and lifters like to lift and runners like to run. And the guys who can do it, do it. And the guys who can't do it, find a way not to do it. And this whole, how fast are you? Check the GPS. I'm not trusting that. Post Trey Lance, where he ran 22 miles an hour, but looked really, really slow once he got on a football field. So to me, the guys that don't run the 40 for a reason. That's fine. It's their prerogative. It's also my prerogative to skip over them. And I really believe that a lot of big receivers, you're comparing this guy to Mike Evans. Mike Evans ran, not you, but people are comparing him to Mike Evans. Mike Evans ran in the high 4.3s. What are we talking about? Mike Evans, I watched Mike Evans at A&M. He had separation for days. This guy's a great high point guy. I bet you if you invited Denzel Boston to your picnic in the 2020 or whatever, he probably was a 3 flies up champ, right? Because he goes up in a crowd, he brings it down, it's really good at it. But he doesn't separate. And I can't take a receiver in the first round who's not going to separate. It's just, what I picture is Denzel Boston rising up against Devin Witherspoon and getting the ball batted down. There's no separation there. There's nothing to scare anybody there.
He's my 13th ranked wide receiver. By the way, Mike Evans, 4.53 official 40-yard time.
Are you sure about that? I thought it was 4.39.
I'm looking at it right now.
I'm pretty sure he ran in the 4.3s. Type in
maybe
Mike
at some
Evans
point,
4.3s.
not officially.
All right. I'm pretty sure. Go check his pro day. I'm pretty sure he ran 4.39 at his pro day.
Well, I'm looking.
I saw an article not that long ago where somebody's like, "Hey, Mike Evans ran 4.38, 4.39." So we'll see. But I personally, Mike Evans had real separation. I mean, if you watch him at A&M,
great route runner, shifty with the shoulders. Yeah, no, there's no question that Mike Evans was a worthy, early 2nd round pick. Like, he was an unbelievable player.
I see a Drake London with Denzel Boston, but not as good a route
high compliment. I see Hakeem Butler with him.
Well, Hakeem Butler actually, was big, 5'230", but just no real separation at all. I think there's.
Sounds about right.
Yeah, I think Hakeem Butler was stiffer than Boston, but I don't think Boston's special. I mean, he looked really good in the red zone, but to me, he's going to be one of the receivers that's a bust. Walter Parton says became a YouTube member. There you go, Walter. We appreciate you, bro. We have Jaimir here who says 6 a.m. in Iceland, running back is number 1 need, in my opinion.
Bad year for number 1 need to be running back. Don't disagree. Yeah. Just saying it's a bad year for it.
Yeah, I mean, do you think it is? Where is running back in the needs?
It's high. It's very high.
because Christian's lost a step?
Because do you trust Jordan James to be your number one back?
No. In fact, if I were the Niners, I would go for 2 backs in this draft. Give me a back in the draft. Give me a back after the draft. I got to get a couple backs, even if it's not a vintage year. I got to get a couple backs. I don't think you need 1. I think you need 2.
I think it's a bad year to need 2.
I know.
I think it's a bad year to need 1.
Jay Kong became a YouTube member. Jay Kong, welcome aboard. All right, that's going to do it for us. Thanks to Dieter. Thanks to all of you. Dieter, once again, tell people, give them one more push. If they haven't gotten the draft guide, what is the best, most efficient way to get the draft guide?
There's 2 ways to do it. You can go to sickos.football. You can just pay us directly through that. If you want the cheaper way, the better way, the way that's going to pay you eventually in like goodies, we send out stickers and stuff every quarter. You can become a draft tier member of the Dieter and Hutch channel, and the best way to do that is go on your desktop so that Apple's not stealing any of your money. Go to the Dieter and Hutch channel, click become a member, and get the draft guide, and then all the instructions will be there for you to access the draft guide. And again, the best part about the draft guide, living, breathing document. We're not trying to change stuff up, but right now it has 236 rated prospects, and we're going to keep adding to it. We're going to keep finding a guy or 2 here or there. Not going to do anything crazy with it, but just you'll have it all by the time the draft comes, and you'll be well suited to have arguments with your friends about NFL draft prospects with the NFL draft guide. None of this mumbo jumbo about how much they like dogs. We're talking tape, we're talking production, we're talking athleticism scores, and we're talking schemes on the Dieter and Hutch draft guide. Sickos.football.
Last thought on the way out the door tomorrow. When do you appear next on KMBR? You
tomorrow? Long Giants post game. So hopefully there's a rain delay or something.
Sounds good. I'm on tomorrow morning. We got my first brand new edition of the 49er Collective tomorrow.
Ooh,
with Grant. This is a new podcast that I'm doing once a week starting tomorrow with Grant Cohn and Alex Boone.
Boone, like the former
Niner offensive lineman who's somewhat controversial and outspoken. He is going to join me and Cohn once a week on this new podcast. So that's tomorrow morning at 9 a.m. I'll be on KMBR tomorrow filling in for Greg Papa with Greg Silver at 10 till 2. We'll talk to Susan Slusser, Marcus Thompson. We'll look ahead to Giants Reds, I believe, from the Great American Ballpark. Mm-hmm. And then that's going to do it. So we got a busy day tomorrow. So anyway, thanks to Dieter. Thanks to all of you. We'll see you tomorrow morning. Once again, hit the sponsors if you want to support the channel. Peace.
Yeah, never met a man I've been scared.